This is Hallicrafters Rehabs. Welcome back. What you were listening to earlier was on the Mark I, the voice of the masses from Eritrea and in Amharic, signing on late at night under good reception conditions. So I have this Mark 1B torn apart again. First of all, I forgot when I had it out earlier that there was a problem with the standby receive, which we'll talk about in a minute. And the other thing is when I put it back together, all of a sudden, there was no signal. It was dead as a doornail. Nothing at all, not even no oscillation whatsoever. So I broke out my Heathkit signal tracer and started going through just to figure it out, see where the signal was stopping, and I just happened to touch this .02 bleed off capacitor, RF bleed capacitor that's attached to the screen of the first mixer, and there was oscillation, and they were working, and then touch it again. And so what had happened was when I pulled this coil back this way to change out this capacitor, or actually to look at whether I wanted to change it out or not, I had already replaced the one above, which is out of the screen. But this one was also turned this way. I've moved this and this, of course, and like the lecture was in the last video, check everything to make sure you're not causing shorts or things like that. So repositioning this and the problem was solved. The standby receive was a lot more involved in that. So let me reposition the camera here. So basically, I had receive all the time, but no switchable standby. And so essentially it's grounded. The sensitivity line actually comes from this direction into this switch and is grounded to the ground, and then you have a sensitive radio. But then when it's open, there's a 380,000 ohm resistance between sensitivity and ground, and you essentially have no signal, and it's desensitized. The sensitivity line actually feeds, oh well, we'll look at it here. Let's see if I got it. Yeah. Kind of hard to distinguish it. But it's this yellow line coming up to this point right here. And what it does is this goes to the switch, and then to the sensitivity control, which is up at the top out of the screen. But it feeds the cathode bias resistors for the RF amplifier, the first IF amplifier right here, and it feeds down here to the second, there it is, the second IF 50.5 kilohertz IF amplifier at this point right here to a 100 ohm resistor to the cathode here. And when you have, and so the sensitivity adjustment increases or decreases resistance in the cathodes, and the higher the resistance, the lower the sensitivity. So I'm basically taking everything apart. Down here at the switch, I need to lower the camera again. Down here at the switch, I had the switch out. This is when maintainability paid off, because I could pull this out, I could move this aside, I could move the phone jack, I could pull this switch out, because there's the way I set up the leads and everything. I didn't have to desolder a single thing in any one of those cases, which made it so much easier to find. So the standby receive switch also goes to this back here. It's a jumper plug. It's used for battery power. Yeah, like you're going battery power this thing. Or a standby receive switch. If I'm sorry, a transmit receive switch. If you're a ham, you want to be able to turn the sensitivity off and transmit, and when you put it in standby with a push to talk switch, if you have one on your mic. So that's what this makes that relatively easy to wire up. However, couldn't find a problem with any of the wiring that I did in here. Couldn't figure it out down here in the switch. But when I pulled this out, I found that actually some insulation that I put over a lead between two contacts had moved out of place, and it was grounded from this switch. The line, this sensitivity line, was grounded in here inappropriately. So just a simple repositioning of the insulation that I put in there was like shrink wrap, actually. And then I turned these contact bits closer in. By the way, I need to tighten that. You can see that. Turn them in so it's less likely to have that in the future. Again, this was a case where really I put it together without adequately testing the standby receive, or I would have found this a lot earlier. But I did also have the switch miswired. Let's see. We're going to have to pull the camera back a little bit. All right. So this is a simplified diagram of the stand. Sensitivity comes into here, which is, the feed to all the cathodes of the three tubes I talked about. Then you have a 10K pot. It's got a capacitor here to drain off any RF. So the switch basically either grounds it, or if it's open, it goes through this 380,000 ohm resistor. It's a single throw, double pole switch. 1 pole, 2 poles, 3 poles, 4 poles. Single throw. Okay. The second one will close it or open it for the jumper plug, which you would have in a standby receive transmit switch, or push to talk switch, or whatever you're doing as a ham, would have it wired into here so that when you pressed, you'd have it in receive normally, and then when you push to talk, it interrupts that signal. But there can be other reasons for standby receive, which is why they ran it through this jumper plug. A single throw, here's the switch right here. It goes one way or the other. Double pole, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 poles. Now, depending on the type of switch. It could be a center off, it could be a double throw, which is on, off, on, and things like that. But it's not, it's just on or off. So which are the terminals that are connected in on? I had it wired this way. That these two would connect and those two would connect. Wrong. Okay. When it is in the on or connected position, this is connected to that, and this is connected to that. So whenever you're rebuilding something and you get into these switches, you really need to, they can be very different kinds of configurations. If you ever purchase them from a supplier, there's every kind under the sun, and you need to basically test it to make sure you've got it wired the way it was supposed to do the job. So that also was incorrectly wired. However, because it was grounded up in here in this selectivity switch, this never came into play. Ground is ground and radio works. However, it also grounded, no, it was actually working. The radio was working just fine. I was thinking maybe it was bypassing these cathode resistors, but it wasn't. So basically, the radio was always switched on, and so by fixing that short in the selectivity switch and wiring this properly, on means from here to here and here to here. The standby receive switch works properly. Now this is certainly a different way to work on the face of a set, but the work list on this was just two things, really. The paint got scraped off when I had the dial slightly misaligned and the screws dug into the paint, so I have to just go over that and clear that up. And then on this side, the glass is not centered. It should be centered at the center line of the half circle, and it's shifted that way slightly, which keeps it from being properly tuning, or makes it difficult. It's not tuning properly that way. So it's just a simple movement of this screw and a little bit of paint, and this thing will be good to go. This is the Mark I, and I've been waiting to do this for some time, so we'll get that done, and then they'll both be in good shape. The other one got buttoned up 2 or 3 times. One time a slug came out again of one of the coils while I was adjusting it, just for tweaking it, and another time, never mind. But it is buttoned up, and we'll see it in a little bit. Okay, well, it's back together, and I had the face off not once, but not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times. So I put it back the first time, and the screws dug in over here again. Took the paint right back off again. So I thought I'd solved the problem. I had not originally. I thought I'd solved it, and it was not the case. So off comes the cover and repaint. And now what to do for the clearance is I took the screws out, and there is a lock washer that was behind it. Very difficult to remove that lock washer, but by removing the lock washer, there's adequate clearance now for this to turn without digging a hole in the paint. So put that back on there. Everything looks good, and the dial's locked, won't move. somehow it got rotated out of position during that evolution. Back off with the cover, and now I'm disassembling. There's 6 nuts inside of here, and in some of my earlier videos you've seen it, but they involve the stop, which stops it at the end, dividing the turn of the making sure the stop is at both ends, making sure it lines up, and making sure that the gang is fully meshed on this end and fully unmeshed on the other end. Lots of adjustment. So I got that back in there, and now it's back together. So this radio is in up to my standards. So and we'll give them all a test a little bit later. Okay, so I'm ending this with radio station HCJB in Quito, Ecuador, 6050 in the evenings. One of the last sources of Andean campesino music that's listenable on short waves. And then here it is on the Mark I. And then I have it over here on the Mark 1B. And that's what you're listening to. So this is Hallicrafters Rehabs. Thanks for watching. Thanks for the new subscribers.